Hey guys, well, I've test run the EX reel, and here's what I have to say about it. The instructions are not bad. Some parts of it could be improved. You do manage to figure things out. Uh, the one thing that could have used a much better instructions was the transmission. Adjusting the transmission servo here, I needed to add some spacers and that for it to work properly. I don't know if that's a design issue or whatnot, but I find that could have used a little bit better instructions. There was one part on the front suspension, the link mount. At one part of the instructions, they ask you to install it, and then on another part where you install the links onto the axles, they tell you to take them off in order to put the link on because the screw goes in from the inside. They could have skipped that part, I guess. It took about 5 hours to build. I say 5 hours because the video that I took of building it was about 5 hours worth. So it's not a bad build. Some parts that I think could have been improved that I noticed while building it was these aluminum plates here holding the transmission in place, and the one holding the motor to the bell housing, which is in here. The aluminum is pretty thin. Well, it's about 2 millimeters, I guess. Let's give you an actual measurement. Yeah, so it's 2 millimeters thick. It's not the hardest aluminum, so when you screw into it, you need to be careful. Use Loctite, otherwise you're going to strip it. Initially, when I assembled the kit, I had the hex drives on the wheel for the wheels. Have the disc on them, and you have like the caliper that goes on top of it, and it looks really cheap because it's white, it's kind of hollow inside, and I thought that that was going to go under load. Uh, they held up, so maybe they're not so bad. The screws that they include are button head screws. Now these screws are pretty shallow. You can see here. Oh, well, you can actually see that, but they're pretty shallow, and when you put the screwdriver in it, there's not a lot of grab. So if you're torquing on it, and you might twist a little bit here and there, they can strip really easily. Uh, and if you have a set of tools that aren't the highest quality for the size and that, then it's really going to strip much easier. So I prefer a deeper socket cap. Let me show you one here. Now, if you compare them, if you compare the socket cap with the button head, there's a much higher grab ratio, if you will, on the socket cap. Now they're not as pretty, when you assemble, but they're a lot tougher for maintenance and that. Because RCs, you tend to, you break something, you got to take it apart and then put it back together, or you're cleaning, you're taking stuff apart again, putting it back together, and button heads just don't stand up to that kind of use. So while they're very pretty, they're not as tough. When you install the motor, you'll notice that the motor actually rotates in reverse direction. Now, electric motors, especially the 540s and so on and so forth, they're designed to run in a counterclockwise rotation. So when you look at it from the front, it turns this way. So why these companies, because my RC 4-wheel drive D90 is the same. It rotates in reverse, so it's rotating clockwise. Now what that means is, if you have a motor with an advanced timing, you're not going to get the performance that you should be getting. So why? I don't know. I mean, it works. I'm not sure if the stock motor that comes with the EX is neutral. If the motor is in neutral timing, it won't matter because it's going to have the same torque and power either direction. But if it's advanced and you're running it in reverse, it's not going to have the power that you need. So it doesn't make any sense to me. So that's a bit of a pet peeve of mine. Initially, when I built the car or the truck, chassis, whatever you want to call it, I noticed that the axle shafts, here you can see it, it's pretty thin, and it gets thick for the bearings, and then it's thin again, and it gets thick again for, so it's like universal joint, thin, thick for the bearings, and then thin again, and then thick again for the differential or the spool. I thought they would break. I thought that would be the first thing that would go on it, but it seemed to have kept up so far. It's one run, of course. It was a pretty tough run. It's a very difficult track because it's designed for Class 2 and Class 3. Class 1 on that track really has trouble, so it was a good track to test on and abuse it. But it held up. Now, is it going to hold up? Is it going to hold up? 3, 4, 5 runs later? I don't know. It's yet to be seen, and that'll be, I guess, the long-term review of this chassis. So, more on that later, I guess. The chassis comes with a electronics box, supposedly sealed and watertight. It even has a rubber seal here. Puts it up, screwed together, and you're supposed to have a watertight box. Now, it comes with these rubber covers, if you will, that you have to cut an X in the end for it to pass your wires through and so on. Now, I don't know about you, but that's not watertight. So, it's probably splash proof. But if you the type of person that likes to submerge a vehicle through water, that's not going to hold up. Another thing is, in the instructions, they show you that they have the ESC and the receiver inside this box. Now, there's plenty of room. It's it's pretty deep, so just easily put stuff in there. The problem is, the Dean's connector is fairly small, right? But it doesn't fit through the hole. So there's no way you're going to get an ESC in here without taking off your connector. The receiver connections, these ones, fit through the holes, no problem. So technically, the only thing you're going to get in here is the receiver. So I didn't use it. I went with a aluminum plate that I just drilled 2 holes into. My items are waterproof in the first place, so it doesn't really matter. When it came time to install the wheels on the axles, I noticed that they don't come with nylon lock nuts. They're just regular flange nuts. I would recommend switching those for the nylon ones. They're not very expensive to start with, so I'm going to be changing that. But like I said, I built this as original as I could. Keeping it as stock as possible from the box so that I could run it and test it properly and tell, figure what was wrong with it and so on and so forth. The bead locks I thought were going to be a problem. They are plastic. This ring here is also plastic. It's very soft, but they did the job. I'm sure after a certain amount of abuse, the plastic rims are probably going to get all warped and so on and so forth. So I may eventually going to change those anyways. I have these high mass wheels that I'm going to be trying on them if the offset is right. During the tests, during the 2-hour test, we realized the one thing that this truck really needed was stickier tires and a little bit more weight on the bottom end, which the high mass wheels will probably provide. and they'll get either some Boom Racing or some Pitbull tires and put them on it. The wheels are great for Class 1. Let me give you a measurement. So they are 3.8 inches. Class 1 regulates 4.19, so they're a good size for Class 1. Depending on how you set up your body, like mine, if I put the maximum size, the wheels are going to start rubbing here and there. So I don't know what maximum size will fit depending on the body you have. So, but I'm going to try and stick with the size that I have for mine. Another part when assembling that you need to be careful of, and that you don't really need to tighten much anyways, is the diff cover screws here. I mean, they're small screws. I think they're 1.5 or 2 millimeters maximum, and they're maybe 8 to 10 millimeters long max. Just tighten them, seat them. You know, you don't have to tighten them a lot. When I assembled this, the drive shafts were not as loose as they are now, to put it mildly. Look at this. This is fairly loose. It's not the end point, it's actually the sleeves that seem to have worked out some play. And obviously that's going to be needing an upgrade fairly soon. Then again, it might actually last. I'm only going to change them once they break. The servo horn goes out towards the front. And if you look at it this way, you'll notice that if I hit a rock or whatever it is, obstacle, the servo horn can get hit. And it did get hit. There are a couple of scuff marks on the link here. The bumper does an okay job of protecting it from most of it, but the bumper is also another problem, as it always ends up coming off because it's just mounted with slots here. So actually you can see it's kind of crooked here. If I push it down, see, it actually moves in the slots. So that was an issue. It kept moving and coming off. It was kind of annoying actually. It needs a better bumper, and it needs a better mounting system for the bumper. The shocks are fantastic. They're a lot bigger. They might not look as scale, but they are really, really smooth. The transmission, we didn't really use it on the track because it's a really technical track and you didn't need the speed at all. But it's once you have it set so that it switches properly, it works quite well. I've tested it here. I've tested it at where I work for a bit more distance than that. Basically, you can't switch it while you're driving unless you're really driving slowly, but I don't recommend it. Basically, you stop, switch the transmission. It generally moves. It doesn't lock into place yet, but as soon as you hit the trigger, it'll fall into place from the spring pressure and the servo movement. But it's all right. I think in the low speeds, it could use a little bit more torque, maybe a higher turn motor for more power. All in all, it's a good build. I like the chassis. It actually performed quite well. We were quite impressed with it. And besides the little tidbits, that most chassis have their little quirks here and there, it's pretty good. I can't complain so far. I guess we'll see in the long run how it does. I'm not sure. I mean, they say the wheelbase is modifiable. I'm reading the box right now. It says 255 to 325 millimeters. I'm not sure how they have that or how that's going to happen, because there's no, like on the chassis there are different mounting positions that you could put the links on, but on the frame part here there's nothing saying that it's there's no positioning or anything that's available. So the only way I can see the wheelbase being adjustable is with new links and repositioning the shock towers and so on and so forth. This bumper here comes with the kit, and it has these large retaining hubs, if you will, have a screw go through it. So I used this to mount on the rear, which I 3D printed, so that the body sits nice and low, and it looks really, really good mounted that way. And the magnetics in the front. I guess that's about it. As you can see, the body took some quite some abuse at the track. We weren't very nice to it. It was very nice. Lost a couple of lights. In the end, I like this kit. It has a lot of potential. Some things could be upgraded, which I might upgrade myself. Positioning of the servo, like this one here, I'm going to make a servo mount which lies it flat this way, allowing more room for the body. Put the interior inside the body and that. I might reconfigure a couple of things for installing the interior, but we'll see what happens with that. Maybe some upgrades I'm going to make available when I get to it. So that's it. I don't know if this is going to change whether you guys want one or not, but like I said, I like it. The rest is up to you. See ya.